Hi, I'm Mort, your host on Change Your Voice, Change Your Life. In studio with me is my co-host, Dr. John Curtis, and the title of our presentation, Part 2.
This is Botox in the New York Times.
Why are we putting that title on the screen?
Well, I think in your particular field, I think there's a lot of disinformation that's gone on about Botox. So we know there was an article in the New York Times. Just let's cut to the chase. Okay, Donald G. McNeil Jr. published an article in 2003.
March 2nd, I believe it is.
Okay, that said basically
front page, New York Times.
This is the front page, and
it
said that Botox is giving patients with spastic vocal cords back their voices, and you found that statement to be objectionable.
More than objectionable, I thought it was inaccurate and didn't qualify or present reservations as to what the outcome of Botox for spastic vocal cords might be. I also was intrigued as to what is the documentation for that statement. And Mr. McNeil Jr. was very kind when I addressed that issue and sent me a printout, a blurb, one page of an article in the Journal of Otology, Rhinology, and Laryngology, which said that they were treating bilateral cord paralysis. Bilateral.
Spasmodic is that the same as the strangled voice?
Yeah, but that's a very exceptional condition, bilateral. Jeff Broad had a surgical procedure. He's on the internet. He gives up the right of privacy and confidentiality. And he has bilateral cord paralysis. He talks like this. That's all he has. And we had a patient who had the surgery from a major medical center. She was on this program, and she has severe impairment of the vocal cords, and she whispers like this too. Jeff Broad is a very wonderful guy. I spoke with him at length by telephone and corresponded with him. And he opted for a surgical procedure. He knew about what I'm doing, direct voice rehab, and he knows about the reports of cures that I have, but he wanted something done to him, not something he's going to work at. So he's the recipient of bilateral cord paralysis, and he has no...
When you say a recipient, do you mean that medical intervention caused his bilateral cord paralysis?
Oh, yeah.
So he did not have his bilateral cord paralysis prior to his surgery?
No.
But prior to the surgery, what did he have?
He had strangled voice, spasmodic dysphonia, which they talk like that and so forth.
Now, in performing a surgery on him, is it the presumption of the medical community that spasmodic dysphonia is a neurological condition?
Absolutely. That dates back to 1960 with Rowe, Brumlick, and Moore, where they found some of their cases of 10 spasmodic dysphonic cases had spiking in the brain, and they didn't understand, from my perspective, that spiking in the brain, as with stuttering, can be caused by effortful speech when you're talking like this. And if you look at stutterers, you'll see they're doing that. And they have eye spasms, neck spasms, back spasm, and they have strangled, strained speech. The same is true of spasmodic dysphonia. So I ran the stutterers group at Stanford in 1957 as a director of adult stutterers, and I saw that. And then later on I realized that it's not a neurological condition that they have, because we had one of the best outcomes at Stanford University they ever had in speech pathology with stutterers. The eye spasms stopped, the neck spasms, and they could, in a good part, talk normally.
Well, they weren't using Botox back then.
No,
for
they weren't
stutters.
using Botox.
But didn't subsequently, after it was introduced to the field of speech pathology, weren't they actually applying Botox to stutterers?
Yes, they were. Botox was brought to the field of spasmodic dysphonia by Mitchell F. Bryn, a neurologist, a well-intentioned, very bright, brilliant guy, humanitarian, compassionate, and that's what I find very interesting. The best and the brightest in the medical community are very compassionate, humanitarian, and well-intentioned. My take on all they're doing with Botox intervening to help patients with spasmodic dysphonia is on the wrong road. They never have one single cure ever with all medical intervention dating back to Traub in 1871, who characterized spasmodic dysphonia as nervous hoarseness. Do you know why he characterized it as nervous hoarseness? If you talk like that and you're strangling, people take you as being nervous, and you come across as nervous, and you're feared like Hannibal Lecter. So spasmodic dysphonic patients
and sort of spasming,
the face, the eyes, the neck.
A symptom of the strain that is related to trying to cough out speech, or produce speech in which somebody is simultaneously strangling themselves.
Yeah.
And yet the medical profession viewed this as a psychiatric condition from 1871 all the way through at least 1960.
And still,
even today, I know that you've mentioned one of your great admired colleagues that you have, and I think you do esteem him.
Yeah.
His name is Dr. Arnie Aronson.
Yeah, he's
of
an
the Mayo
icon in the
Clinic.
field. He's on the wrong road. I told him that for years. He said to me that he's been, if I'm correct, and I'm open to correction, he said that he's been on the wrong road in looking at spasmodic dysphonia for 35 years. I've been reporting cures of spasmodic dysphonia for 35 years.
But he also
he wasn't in agreement. He is now.
He also believes that there's what's called a psychogenic variety of spasmodic dysphonia, because I've talked to him via email, and he's of the belief that the patients that you've treated have been only, and the ones for whom you have received your cures or the major recoveries, have been those with psychogenic. Can you comment about that?
I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know.
Do you treat only psychogenic spasmodic dysphonia?
I don't treat psychogenic.
Then why does he refer to you as treating those patients?
Well, he's on the wrong road again. He's misdefining what I'm doing. He doesn't believe, or did not believe, now he's changed his position. He didn't believe that I could cure neurological SD, and neurological SD is what he wrote for the Reverend James Johnson 20 years ago, saying that this patient who had spasmodic dysphonia had neurological spasmodic dysphonia. I helped cure James Johnson, the Reverend James Johnson, in 1 month of intensive therapy, and he's remained cured for 20 years.
Now, why do
now
you
I had
refer to
Dr. Arnie
neurological?
Aronson, if I could pick that up, call the Reverend James Johnson, finally, after 20 years, and now in email, Arnie Aronson, who's a colleague of mine, I esteem him very much, has said that the Reverend Johnson is perfect. He was most severe. We've played the severity of James Johnson. So he's changing his position. I am of the view and mind that I cannot cure a neurological position, a neurological strangled voice.
That's what I was getting at, is when you referred to the diagnosis of Reverend Johnson as neurological SD.
By Arnie Aronson
you
on the Mayo
were only
Clinic
referring to that for the purpose of distinguishing the label, distinguishing it from the label of psychogenic.
Absolutely.
But you don't necessarily agree that there is such a thing as neurological SD.
A case here and there. I think they're on the wrong road. They've misdiagnosed it. What's that?
You believe that the vast majority of cases are not neurological.
They're all basically functional, which means they're talking in the wrong voice. All spasmodic dysphonia, Dr. Gerald Burke, UCLA, head and neck division, chairman of that division, says that SD is in the lower throat. He is correct. He's absolutely correct. Where they're incorrect is that they're saying it's a dystonia neurological problem and it can't be changed. I can change the so-called neurological problem in seconds or minutes. I do that at meetings. I do it at presentations for the American Speech and Hearing Association, playing the tape. I can change voices on Larry King, Oprah, and so forth that are failing. And get them to sound right. The key is not to get the right voice. I can do that quite quickly, in seconds, is to get them to use that voice ongoingly. The Wall Street Journal interviewed me in 1980 saying I'm a miraculous voice doctor, citing Norton Simon. I helped him get his voice back after he was losing it for 35 years, going from one doctor to another. I thought that was very simple. It took a period of maybe 4 or 5 months to get him acquainted with his right voice. And the same thing is true of those with spasmodic dysphonia as with stuttering. It took a year to change the stutterers, the adult stutterers,